Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me again on another episode of Rudd's Room. This is a continuation of last week's episode where I will be doing another District 33 legislative update. So, this is District 33 in Indiana. It's East Central Indiana. This will be particularly relevant to anyone who actually lives in District 33. Also, anyone who lives in Indiana, because legislation bills that pass affect everyone in the state, and could also be interesting to anyone who's just kind of curious how legislation works in general at the state level. And I'm sure most states it's fairly similar. There's going to be differences because everyone has their own state laws, etc. But that's kind of what I'm going to be outlining here again. I am not a politician or representative. I'm just a political commentator. But Representative of District 33 has been refusing to engage with constituents, hold any town halls. I've been emailing him probably every couple days, touching base, asking if he will be holding any public events to take questions. And I can't get an answer via email. So I'm going to continue to do these just so people can be informed. I think that's very important. I think citizens need to be as involved as they can be in the political process so that we're not reacting to new legislation. We can be active. We can contact our representatives, our officials, and let them know if they're heading in the right direction or not. So I think it is very important to keep people informed, and that's why I'm doing this. May not be the most exciting type of video, but hopefully it's informative and everybody learns something from it. So this is part 2. Like I said, I've already done one. It's just called District 33 Legislative Update. JD Prescott, I believe, is the title of it. That's on the Bastards channel under the Rudd's Room playlist. Not a lot of videos on there. I'm going to continue to do these, so I'm going to start building it up. This isn't what I'm going to always do because obviously they're only in legislative session a couple months a year, but I'm going to start trying to come up with some additional content. Please feel free to like, subscribe, comment. I do read the comments. I was reading them from last video. I did get some kind of updates and information from other people who had their own thoughts on the bills, and I like that. I like that back and forth. So if you agree with me on my opinions on some bills, if you disagree, or if I misstate something, which I'm sure I will, please feel free to comment, and I'll try to read all those and hopefully do better, or even maybe mention some of your thoughts and opinions when I do updates. So we got a couple months of this legislative session, so I'm going to continue to do these hopefully weekly as long as nothing crazy happens, and just try to keep everyone informed. That's the whole point. So let's go ahead and get started. So that's not how I want that. There we go. So let's get started with this. Like I said, I'm going over the legislation proposed by Representative JD Prescott, Republican District 33. There's his lovely picture, address, phone number. If you want to contact him, please be polite. I did mention I've been emailing him. My last email, just so you know, people think I just bully and badmouth him. Said, hey, could you please... Heck, I could probably read it, but essentially I said, hey, could you please let me know when you'll be holding a public town hall? I wouldn't want to miss it. So please let me know as soon as you're available. I know you're busy, but I'd really like to get some updates. So until we get those, again, he has no public social media or anything like that. So unless you're contacting him directly and he's answering you, there's no real good way to get out that information to the masses. Okay, so I'm going to start by going back to a couple bills from last week that I said I would look into some more. And I'm going to be a man of my word. I'm going to go back to them. This one actually got a little bit more feedback from someone in the comments. I'm not going to say this person's name because I don't know if they want to be called out in my video. They want to be associated with me, but hey, if they want to comment in the future and say that's okay, then I'll give them credit. I'm not trying to steal credit, but so let's start with House Bill 1144. This one, state employment of probation officers, provides that a probation officer is a state employee whose salary is 1, fixed by the appointing court in accordance with minimum compensation requirements adopted by the Judicial Conference of Indiana. And 2, it is paid from the state general fund, allows the county, city, or town to pay probation officer salary supplement in the unit's salary ordinance. So this one's pretty straightforward. The person explained to me that in a previous, I guess it would have been a town hall during the election, they had mentioned that JD had mentioned that he wanted to do this one. This is basically to take some burden off of the county, the local government, and instead put it onto the state. So the state would be employing these probation officers instead of the county. It'll probably save county like $100,000 or something like that, which I suppose is nice. I don't know how much that moves the needle, but that's the point of this bill. So we'll see where that one goes. So that's an update on that one. I said I wasn't sure what was going on. That's basically the gist of it, that moving some of that financial burden to the state instead of local government. So we'll go back. The other one I wanted to bring up, House Bill 1145. I was not aware either on what this one was all about. I talked to someone on this one. Essentially, Delaware County only has so many circuit court judges, so many circuit courts, and they get overwhelmed. So they're wanting to appoint a full-time magistrate. So basically like an assistant judge to help them because they get overwhelmed. I'm sure this one was brought up to JD Prescott when he was visiting Delaware County last. As far as I know, in an unannounced visit, I wanted to attend that one, but I did not see it advertised anywhere, so wasn't aware I would have been there to ask questions. But yeah, that one seems pretty straightforward to me. No big deal. We'll see where that one goes. So that is my update from last week where I said I would follow up with you. So that's those two bills. You might also notice this looks different. I'm using the new IGA site. So this is the beta version. It's not supposed to be fully functional, but it seems like for everything I'm doing right now, it's working. So I'll go ahead and use this one. It runs a little faster too, so that'll be nice. Okay, so since last week, there have been more bills added to the IGA website. I think they add these as they can. It takes them some time. So I think last week we had HB 1145 and House Joint Resolution 1. These were all added in the last week. So we're going to go ahead and look at these, starting with House Bill 1428. So this one's authored by Representative JD Prescott, co-authored by Representative Michelle Davis. So the digest requires candidates for school board offices to be nominated in the same manner as candidates for all elected offices are nominated, repeals the current statute relating to nomination of candidates for school board offices, repeals other suspended statutes, and makes conforming changes. So this bill is kind of interesting to me. I was actually reading the latest version. It seems like a lot of what it deals with is what happens in the event of a tie or an unclear win in a school board election and how that is handled. It's really kind of some bookkeeping, not particularly interesting. It also says the digest is kind of confusing to me because reading the actual latest version and what they're changing, almost all of it applies to how they deal with like ties and runoffs and things like that. So what I thought this was going to be is last year Representative Prescott introduced a bill that would force all candidates for school board to present their party affiliation on the ballot. As of now, that's not required. In my area, it is not required. I ran for school board. I didn't have to tell them what my party was. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't think it really matters. People will argue that, that the Democrats or the Republicans, depending on what your party is how you're going to represent as a school board member. Unfortunately, it seems that the schools are a lot more politicized than they used to be. And I don't really like that. I feel like if you're on the school board, your goal should be to make sure that the kids are, safe. Safety is always first in anywhere you're at, and that they're being educated. I don't know that having that affiliation necessarily means that you're going to represent certain values or not. I would hope everybody can use common sense when it comes to these things. But so he proposed that bill last year. Infamously, it got to committee, and in committee, someone asked JD Prescott what that letter will tell you, and he said that it will tell you the moral character and financial responsibility of the candidate. Didn't go over well. That one ended up dying. Did not go anywhere. So I thought this was going to be a continuation of that bill. It does not appear to be, unless it's somewhere hidden there. Because reading this bill version, it's a little confusing as well, because they do a lot of elections will be run per IC 3-13 et cetera, et cetera. So it's really kind of hard to read this one. It's a little cloudy. So I'll follow this one, see if I can figure out anything else on it. But right now it seems pretty straightforward. So we'll leave it at that for now. We have a co-author, Michelle Davis, on this one, famous for the trans sports bill in Indiana, not allowing trans students to participate in sports other than that which represents their born sex, I guess would be what it is. So she's working with JD Prescott on this one as well. Okay, so that was school board elections. HB 1429. Oh boy, I love this one. This authored by JD Prescott, no co-authors. House Bill 1429, Communications Infrastructure and Utility Easement. Digest. It provides that if an electricity supplier provides a property owner with notice of the electricity supplier's intent to 1, install new communications infrastructure, or 2, allow A, an unaffiliated entity of the electricity supplier, or B, a communication service provider, to install new communications infrastructure within an electric easement on the property, the property owner shall allow the electricity supplier, affiliated entity, or communication service provider to access the electric easement for purposes of the attachment or installation of communications infrastructure within the electric easement. Provides that a property owner is not entitled to damages for a decrease in the value of the property caused by an electricity supplier's use of an electric easement on the property for communications infrastructure if an appraisal of the property cannot determine a value for the property due to a lack of comparable properties. My understanding of where this is coming from, and I'm probably right on this. Representative JD Prescott is often pushed, saying that he's pushing for high-speed internet in our rural communities. We have not seen that happen. In fact, he had posted before he started blocking everyone on social media that that Indiana's doing great. They've got all these big grants, and we're starting to really spread this high-speed internet to rural areas, except for 8 counties, pretty much all of which are in District 33. So JD Prescott has not been doing a good job of working with local communities, local government to make sure that this happens. I think this is maybe an attempt to make it easier for the utility companies to provide high-speed internet. It's probably where this is coming from. Again, I wish JD Prescott would talk to us. He could answer for himself. Until then, I'm assuming. So these are all my assumptions, my best guesses. This bill, the way it's worded, I hate it. It's a huge property rights violation in my opinion, my personal opinion. You're saying that you have no right to say no to a supplier or a communication service provider to access your property. It also says that they can damage your property, decrease your value of your property, and there's potential that you could do nothing about it. That to me is absurd. This is coming from a representative who says that he is huge into property rights. If you look at the first video I posted in Rudd's room, it's him at a town hall stating the importance of property rights, and then he authors a bill like this that, in my opinion, is very anti-property rights. This is kind of par for the course for JD Prescott. He's voted on a lot of anti-property rights bills. He voted for a bill that would allow the state to basically just claim people's beachfront properties. If their property is on a beach, the state can take it and use it for public use. That seems to be a big property rights violation to me. He voted for a bill, if I remember correctly, that would not allow local communities to determine if alternative energy could come in there or not. Regardless on your opinion on alternative energies, I think that people locally should have more power and should be able to vote and make these decisions based on their community. So this one's kind of par for the course. Anti-property rights bill. I do like the idea of getting high-speed internet in. I don't like the idea of utility companies coming in, destroying people's property, and people having no recourse for repayment or um, or really justice as far as having their own property goes, maintaining their own property and having property rights. So that's House Bill 1429. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm not a fan of this one. Okay. So on to HB 1516. So I'm going to give you the basics on this one. I need to do a lot more reading in this one because this one's kind of a big one. So House Bill 1516, Comparative College and Career Information, authored by JD Prescott, co-authored by Corey Criswell. Corey Criswell. He is a fresh representative, if I'm correct, from Henry County. So was that District 35? No, I'm probably wrong. So digest. Task the Commission for Higher Education Commission, the Department of Education, and the Department of Workforce Development to collect and compile certain information concerning 1. Post-secondary education, 2. Career and technical education, 3. Workforce qualifications, 4. Workforce earnings, and 5. Workforce debt. Requires the Commission to create an interactive website known as the Student Horizon Dashboard to provide public access to certain collected and compiled information. Requires the Commission, the Department of Education, the Department of Workforce Development to create a report known as the Student Graduate Horizon Scorecard for annual distribution. Specifies that the scorecard contains certain information concerning high-paying civilian and military careers and in-demand jobs. Requires the Commission to prepare an annual report for the Legislative Council. Requires state educational institutions and career and technical education programs to collect and provide information as requested by the Commission. I will say right now, this one at face value sounds okay to me. It sounds like a decent idea. Please let me know in the comments if you disagree. So basically, it sounds like they're just trying to compile data to provide to people so that they can see and compare, because we have a big issue right now where people don't know if they should be going into college, if they should be going directly into like technical fields, and it's kind of difficult to determine where you want to go. So it sounds like this would create an easy place where people look up and say, hey, what's high paying jobs in Indiana or in your region? What are your qualifications that you need to have to get it? And then how much money are you going to make? So you might want to look and say, oh, do I want to go into education? Well, maybe the careers on average make $50,000 a year, making up numbers, $50,000 a year, and have an average of $30,000 debt. Or maybe I want to go be a welder, and that will start you off at $70,000 a year and $10,000 in debt. Again, I'm making up numbers, so I don't need to. So don't blow me up in the comments on how those numbers are stupid. They're just made up numbers. But that might help guide you towards, oh, well, shoot, maybe I don't want to be a teacher. Maybe I want to be a welder. Maybe I want to go into that field. So that sounds okay to me. The only question I have is regarding, do they have the resources to do all this? Do you have to do some additional things, maybe open up for some more hiring of people to maintain this data, things like that? Who does this fall on? I really need to read into this one more and see if I'm reading this correctly. And if it is a good idea or not. At the surface, with no other variables, it sounds like it's not a bad idea. So people say I never say anything nice about JD Prescott. This one sounds like a decent idea to me. Not sure where he got the idea for this one. But we'll see where it goes. So that's House Bill 1516. His last new bill that's been proposed this week, House Bill 1517, social media, authored by JD Prescott. Sorry for that. No co-authors on this one right now. Have a little tea. My mouth is getting dry. So the digest requires the Office of Technology to restrict access to TikTok or web chat applications or any other applications developed by ByteDance Limited or 10 Cent Holdings Limited, and prohibits persons from accessing those applications or visiting those websites on a state-owned, operated, or maintained device. Imposes a surcharge tax on social media providers. Defines social media provider as a social media company that 1. Maintains a public social media platform, 2. Has more than 1 million active Indiana account holders, and 3. Has annual gross revenue derived from social media advertising services in Indiana of at least $1 million, and 4. Derives economic benefit from the data individuals in Indiana share with the company. Provides that the surcharge tax is equal to 1. The annual gross revenue derived from social media advertising services in Indiana in a calendar year multiplied by 7%, plus 2. The total number of social media providers active Indiana account holders in a calendar year multiplied by $1. That can be pretty costly. Establishes the online bullying, social isolation, and suicide prevention fund for the purposes of providing 1. Online bullying prevention, or 2. Social isolation and suicide prevention, training and research for counselors and educational institutions. Provides that the Division of Mental Health and Addiction shall administer the fund. Transfers the revenue from the surcharge tax to the fund. Makes an appropriation. So this one's interesting, just to break it down simply. Basically, they're trying to. He's saying we need to make sure that TikTok and WeChat. Sorry, I might have said web chat before. WeChat applications aren't being used on any state-owned devices, operated, owned, or maintained devices. I kind of agree with this one as well. See, I'm being super sweet this week. I kind of agree with that one as well. Those apps, particular TikTok, has been pretty controversial as far as like data gathering and issues regarding that. We don't really, and people shouldn't be using that stuff on state-owned, operated, and maintained devices anyway. I don't know why people are playing around in TikTok on their government computer. Just use your own cell phone, whatever. You don't need to be using that. And then of course he's creating a new tax. JD typically proposes new taxes every year. He's kind of a high tax guy, likes taxing people for some reason. His first year, one of his first actions was to create a new tax and registration of personal property, another property rights issue regarding taxing and registering ATVs. So it's another tax by JD Prescott. I like that this one's directed better. His previous tax would go to the highway department, which has nothing to do with ATVs. This one at least goes to this new fund, which I don't have a problem with, an online bullying, social isolation, and suicide prevention fund. I'm paying for that with the tax. It's interesting to have Jay Prescott so involved in a social media bill, considering he doesn't really engage with anybody on social media. He also has been known to block people on social media, insult people, call them names on social media, bully people on social media. So it's funny that he's decided to take this one as a bill he'd like to do. I would have preferred a bill from him that would say that government officials and state representatives, state senators, etc., maintaining social media for government purposes shall not be allowed to block or restrict users based on their personal views or opinions. That would have been a great one. That's been a big issue that's been coming up lately throughout the country, where people are being blocked from their city's webpage, from the representative's webpage. They're blocked for asking a question about why the representative voted against helping with tax breaks for disabled veterans, things like that. And there's no real law that says they can't do that. However, it's a clear violation of the First Amendment. So we keep having tons of lawsuits. Lawsuits keep popping up where people are being blocked, having to sue. ACLU gets involved in all these. It's a huge waste of taxpayer money and time, because these representatives try to claim it's a personal webpage, and then they use a government-appointed lawyer for their defense. So they end up wasting taxpayer money arguing that it's a personal page, which is kind of silly. That's just a general observation. I'm not speaking on a specific event, just a general observation of how these work. There are tons of these that happen every year. So, yeah, I'm rambling now, but yeah, I don't have a huge issue with this bill. I'd like to see how that money actually works out. I'd like to see where this one goes as well. So that's it. I think I've covered every bill that JD Prescott has authored this year. Um, just wanted to give you all an update so you know what's going on. We're not seeing these in any kind of public forum, no web page or social media where we can engage or get updates, videos like this. So I decided I would go ahead and do it. Something else to note now that we know all of the bills that JD Prescott has proposed, I like to do this. I did this last year as well, and actually asked a question on it. But so I've talked about this on other videos. I went on a Bilbrey Live to talk about this. But every year, the representatives, state senators, they send out surveys. These surveys are to ask the public. It's one way of communicating with the public. They all do it. JD Prescott, of course, did it as well. And they'll send out questions asking what you want them to work on, what's important to you, et cetera, et cetera. So I've read to you all the House bills that JD has authored. Now allow me to read to you again the questions on the survey that he mailed out. Question 1, Indiana is projected to have about $4 billion in its savings account at the end of the current fiscal year. The amount would run state government operations and local schools for about 65 days or 18% of the year. Do you believe the amount of money in Indiana's savings account is too high, too low, or just right? Question 2, a recent nonpartisan study commissioned by Legislative Services Agency found that consolidation in healthcare systems results in increased costs for Hoosier patients. Should Indiana take more action to ensure Hoosiers have better transparency and more choices when seeking healthcare coverage or care? Okay. Number 3, Indiana roads are funded through user fees such as the gas excise tax. I can read. With the projected increase in electric vehicle usage over the coming years, the amount someone drives on the road may no longer correlate to the amount of user fees they pay to maintain those roads. Should the state start examining alternate ways to collect road usage fees and eliminate the gas tax? Okay. Number 4, should the state take more action to ensure Hoosiers have access to safe, reliable, and affordable energy? Okay. Number 5, should Indiana take action and increase the stock of affordable houses available in the state? That's the 5 questions. So you get those 5 questions. You can answer it online, or they'll send you an envelope like this one with a please add postage here. You send it back with the idea being that your representative will look at these and use these to determine which way their legislation is going. Now that I've read you the 10 bills that JD has authored, which one of those applies to that survey? Not a single one that I can tell. This survey is completely useless, does not care about what the constituents are saying. It's simply there to give the illusion that he's actually asking, and it's going to take into consideration what the constituents want when he goes and starts authoring legislation. The exact same thing occurred last year during the election year. And I asked JD about that. I couldn't get answers from him directly, but the local newspaper here said that since people were saying that JD wasn't transparent, he agreed to answer questions one time only. If they would submit them to the newspaper by a certain date, he would answer them on the following Tuesday or whatever it was. And that edition, he would get a whole spread during the election, mind you, where he would answer questions from constituents that were selected by the paper. Well, the paper did select my question, which I appreciated, where I asked, why did you send out this survey with all these questions if you're not going to use those to direct your legislation? Well, the first thing that occurred was JD had promised to answer those questions by the next Tuesday or whatever the date was. I could be wrong. But once he saw the questions, he realized a lot of them were kind of difficult. They were questions that he didn't want to answer, that he didn't want to try to defend. So what he said was, oh, well, the Senate's working on those on the Senate side right now, because after the House pushes these bills, goes to the Senate where they can do all their amendments, they can change them, they can do what they want. So he said, I'm not going to answer those until the Senate does their amendments, and then I'll answer them. To me, that was a cop-out. You are defending the bill as it stands. You voted for and defended the House bill, and now you want to wait until it changes to the Senate bill to answer the question. So probably about, I think there may be, let's say, 10 questions that were answered in the paper. Probably about 5 of them, he said, no longer relevant. The Senate amended it. It doesn't matter anymore. So half the questions we didn't get an answer to. My question I did get an answer to. I asked, like I said, why are you sending out these surveys if you're not going to use them to guide your legislation? His response was something along the lines of, and I should have just printed it out so I had his exact response. These surveys are just one way of gathering information from the constituents regarding their opinions and whatnot. There's several other ways I do it. That's just one way. That was his answer. Well, it's one way that you're not using. I'm not sure what the other way is, because you're not answering emails, you're not doing town halls, you're not talking to the general public. So I still say you should fill these out. I still say you should put in your comments for sure. Add in your comments. There's always a comment section. If you do these online, there's a huge comment section. I think you're allowed unlimited characters. I tested it in that I wrote a lot of comments, and I never ran out of characters. There may be a character limit at some point, but I didn't hit it. So you should be able to say everything you need to say. The other thing that's frustrating is these are paid for by the taxpayer. So we paid to have these sent out, and then they weren't used. Not only that, but they don't pay for the postage. So you paid for the postage. So you took your time to fill it out. You paid with your taxpayer money to have it printed and shipped to you. You paid for your own stamp to have it returned, and it's being ignored. That's very frustrating to me. I just wanted to make that point before we end this episode. I meant to say it last time, because last time he hadn't touched on it yet, but it's not really fair because they hadn't finished uploading all of his bills. So there's still a chance that his next 5 bills could have all pertained to these 5 questions. As it stands, none of them did. Don't love that. I don't love it. So that's going to be the update for the week. Sorry, I got a little cranky in the end there. It's kind of difficult for me to really dig into this stuff. I'm not at the State House. I'm not able to talk to the legislators while they're in session. It takes a lot of time to watch all the committee hearings, all these things. Something to note, I also didn't note, I did last week. I was going to do it at the end this time. None of these, every one of his bills have been assigned to committees so far. None of them have been heard in any committees or have an assigned date for a hearing. That doesn't mean they won't be heard. Just we don't have a date yet. So like I was saying, I'll try to watch all the committee hearings, find out more what these are all about. So far, these have just been proposed and assigned to a committee. They don't have a hearing date yet, haven't been voted on yet, anything like that. So there's not a lot of movement yet. So this is just a basic rundown of what is going on, and where things are going right now. So with that, I will leave you. Thank you for watching this episode of Rudd's Room. If you haven't done so yet, please like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell to be notified of new episodes. If you'd like to see additional content featuring Brandon Rudd, please tune in every Thursday for the live show, The Bastards of Politics, which features Christopher H. Bilbrey, Joshua Civic Duty Kimbrell, and myself. You can also check out the audio-only version of the episodes at thebastards.fireside.fm and anywhere podcasts can be found. Thanks again, and have a great day.